Okay, welcome back. This on this video, we're going to be talking about our favorite podcast.
Yep.
We're going to be
And what
talking
we think
about
about podcasts.
yes, our favorite podcast, or we're also going to be talking about our listening to podcasts. Are they influencing us for the good, the bad, um,
The
or just
ugly.
not at all? Okay, before we get started talking about podcasts, I wanted to bring up we always I love listening to like video um stories or like people talking about stuff because I remember when
Yeah.
we were kids, um we used to on Saturday morning, from like 7 in the morning till like noon, we would
Yeah.
listen to like these um adventure series for like kids that were on the
hmm
radio, and I just enjoyed it so much. Like even as a kid, when like you thought, oh, it doesn't have the visual aspect to it, but we just loved listening to it so much. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. I remember we used to get up. It was like on Saturdays,
Yeah,
and they would have it like from almost 7 in the morning to like noon. Just these kind of focused towards kids, but like these audio shows that were like watching a movie, but just for sound. And it was really cool. I definitely remember those. Yeah, we really consumed that a lot. So you're saying that probably plays in a lot to your interest in podcasts because of like that audio storytelling.
yeah, definitely. I've always, I mean, when I'm driving or I like music, but for some reason, just listening to a good story or like a podcast, for some reason, I like that and enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah.
Um, so right now, what podcast are you listening to,
I
for
listen
yourself?
to I'm listening to a number of different ones. I listen to Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan experience quite a lot. And I just because he has so much to consume. I know you listen to that as well.
Yes, I
Um,
do.
and I listen to Ear Biscuits like we talked about on the last episode.
Yeah,
And
Renlink.
Rhett and Link, and I've listened to a number of different ones. Some of them are like more teaching based. Some of them are just like storytelling, like you're talking about. Some of them are just like random topics. I'm a really big fan of Olin Rogers. I don't know if a lot of people know about him in our audience, our small audience yet, um,
Does he
but
have a
Olin
podcast?
Rogers, he has about 4 episodes. Him and another guy. It's called We're in This Together. He just started it recently. They don't post very often, but he does have a podcast. Him and
I did
another
not
guy,
know
another
that.
comedian.
I need to
Yeah.
listen to that.
So when he came out with it, I've been keeping up with him. I think they actually just came out with one today. So when this is coming out, it'll be a few days old at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So that's I kind of listen to a number of different things. Again, I've gone on some and then got off of some, and so there's been a bunch that I've kind of cycled through. But yeah, right now I'm really into the storytelling and just exploring topics and ideas to help self-educate myself a bit.
Yeah, I know. I like listening to. I know a lot of people are not a fan of his, but Impulsive, Logan Paul's podcast,
Mm-hmm.
primarily because of what you're talking about. Um, I like he has a lot of like millionaires and people just like very entrepreneurial people on his podcast, and they
Yeah.
talk about how they got their start and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like listening to that. A lot of people don't like his stuff, but I for some reason I just find his podcast very interesting.
Do you
Because
listen to them or do you watch them?
I mostly just watch. I mean, listen to because I'm mostly in the car when I'm listening to most of
Yeah.
the podcasts and stuff, when
I
I'm
will say
driving.
there is, and we don't have to talk much about this, but I feel like there is an art to how people record their podcasts. I know right now,
Yeah,
since we're long distance, we've kind of adopted this idea of kind of split screens like you're seeing right now, and
Yeah.
doing it sort of over FaceTime because we're not together in person. But even like what you're talking about, I'm not a huge fan of Logan Paul's podcast. I've listened to a few episodes, but I'm more interested in the way he films it. He's very
Yeah.
intentional with the production value of their show, and it also kind of mimics the vibe that he's had in his vlogs in the past, like kind of those zoom in and outs, that kind of quick motion, yet at the same time getting some really high quality, wide panning shots and everything. So even the way podcasts are recorded, there's a big variety, and it's really interesting to kind of study how people record having conversations with people.
Yeah, definitely. His is a little bit different than like um, another podcast I listen to is H3H3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how they film it, they just have like a bunch of cameras set up and they just switch between the two. But
Yeah.
you can't tell that, like, I guess it's not like a panning where you're looking from each person to
Mm-hmm.
um, on like one camera as much, because
Yeah.
it's just switching between the cameras. So it's kind of hard to, I mean, it's not hard to comprehend and it's not horrible filming, but it just, I feel like it has more of like a personal feel when it's panning over to the person.
Yeah,
So
it
I
feels
agree
like you're
with
in the
that.
room. It feels like you're in the room looking back and forth. Um,
Yeah.
if you're not the one talking, you're just kind of watching and listening to the people talking, and that's kind of what Logan Paul's style feels like. It feels like you're just kind of looking all over the room as they're talking. Um, but yeah, so what you brought up H3. Um, I know in the way that they do podcasts. What do you think about kind of the topics? Because like I've said before, I listen to them as well. But honestly, I listen to them for the entertainment value of it.
Yeah, I do too.
It's the comedy and the topics and the way they react to things they're talking about is very funny to me. They're one of the few that I listen to for comedy and for entertainment. Other ones like Joe Rogan and stuff, there's usually really interesting conversations that I actually
Yeah.
want to, make myself aware of or learn about, that they talk about those. So that one's more for entertainment value. What do you think? Do you consume more entertainment or educational? What do you think?
I feel like probably more educational. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I like listening to Joe Rogan, yeah, because there's a lot of interesting people on there, but also because Joe Rogan himself, he's just seems like just a real, like, hard, cool dude. Um,
Yeah.
or like with his, like, just the way he looks at things, plus his, like, his how he does like fighting and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm really interested in that. Um,
Yeah.
and then also, like I mentioned earlier, just like entrepreneurial people that are on podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I like listening to that. And then also
I've heard. Go
one
ahead.
another podcast that I don't listen to all the podcasts you do, but um, Peter McKinnon. He's a
Yeah.
filmmaker that we talk about a lot on this episode, on this show. He has a podcast with his friend, and they talk about some filmmaking stuff. I listen to that
Yeah.
some too. Not a ton,
I've
but a little bit.
I watch a lot of his videos, but I haven't delved deep into his podcast yet. I'll probably kind of just decide one day that I'm going to do it and just listen to all of them. But
Yeah.
he doesn't have a crazy amount of them out yet. Um, but
So, are you about to say something?
well, I was going to ask you a question, but you can go ahead.
Well, I was gonna dive into the topic. Do you think, being that we're listening to podcasts through like Spotify or video podcasts through YouTube and other things like
Hmm.
that, do you think that's making radio and talk shows um, going to be obsolete soon? I've heard statistics where they're saying there's still a ton of people that listen to radio,
Hmm.
like for advertisements and stuff like that, people putting stuff on radio. But to me, it seems like it's very few, and maybe just my generation and people I'm around, they just listen to, like,
Yeah.
because we can, there's aux cords, you can plug up your phone, or Bluetooth in the car now, to where
Yeah.
you can stream anything from your phone and listen to any podcast you want and not
Yeah.
listen to it in the car or even just listen to the radio. Do you think that's making podcasts are making radio obsolete?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I'll spit them out, but I don't know how much sense they're gonna make.
Yeah, because I mean,
So I
we
do
haven't done
think,
research on this. It's just a
yeah,
question
these
and
are
opinion.
these are opinions. This whole show is not very research based. We just kind of talk about our thoughts, and we could be right or wrong, or be really
Yeah.
off base, or maybe we'll get right on a topic. But in the idea of talk shows and in relation to podcasts, there are some people who do it really well. So if there's like a talk show that is broadcasted live on the radio, like The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, and a few other people, I can't remember the other host names, but
Mhm.
they broadcast national on a lot of stations that play a lot of rap music and stuff. And I've listened to them quite a number of times, and they have a very big audience. And they're not very old. They're relatively young younger individuals. They're kind of middle aged. And the thing that's smart about what they do, and places like The Blaze that is owned by Glenn Beck,
Mhm.
they are, yes, broadcasting their shows, but then they're converting those shows into podcast style content. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, different from television and streaming, I think television, like TV, cable, broadcasting that way will probably be around for a while, but it's not, we already know the numbers are really low compared to what they used to be, or compared to people who are watching online and consuming streaming content from online.
Yeah.
I think radio is going to be around a little bit longer because podcasts are funded the way radio has always been funded. They get sponsorships, and
Yeah.
you know,
They are.
they do verbal ads, and podcasts are doing the same way that radio still does, and radio has always done. And so really that's my thoughts. I think radio is going to be around for a while, as long as the people who are in charge are making good decisions and knowing that they're probably going to get a really large audience on the back end of broadcasting their shows live over radio.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, it's probably going to be around still for a few more years, but I feel like eventually it will die out for the
Mhm.
reason I'm saying, that we stream everything. And I know, like, you used to have a job where you were driving around delivering truck parts a lot. So
Yeah.
you didn't, I mean, you were just in a van and you couldn't like plug up your phone or anything and listen to that. So you just listen to the radio. So you
Mhm.
listen to a lot more radio than I do or did.
Yeah.
But that's why I listen to a lot more just like podcasts and stream it from my phone. But I feel like generation underneath me, or like younger coming up now, like graduating high school, I don't think they listen to the radio at all. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's just kind
That's
of
a
a
good point.
generational thing. I think it might get pushed out by generation.
Well, I know when I was around that age, I listened to radio a little bit by myself in the car, but I really didn't start listening to radio until I got into college and was working a job where I was either always in the car or
Yeah, but
always going back and
get
forth.
this,
And
get
then,
this.
okay.
You drove 95 Oldsmobile. That radio didn't even have a tape player in it.
Yeah, well, it
That's
did,
why you listen to
but
the
it was
radio.
broken. I had a tape player, but it was broken. So, yes, I did drive an Oldsmobile. That was as old as me, 1995.
Yeah, you literally, there was nothing. You had nothing but the radio. I remember one time, like, I just was so frustrated, and I was in the car. This was after we had the car, and it was like almost dead. That I just like I got up and I kicked the radio because I was so angry at it. And
In
you
the
just
car I
like,
had,
what?
In the car I had, you did that to my car.
Well, it was kind of both our cars. I know it ended up with you, but it was kind of both our cars at this time. And you were in the car, and you went off on me because you're like, "This is my car, and this is the only entertainment I have in this car."
Frick. I mean, yeah, that was important to me. That radio was my that was the only barrier between me and silence driving everywhere. Yeah, that was important. I mean, I have since got another car, and so I can do more things in that car,
Yeah.
and listen to more things. But yeah, that was important. I think radio in relation to podcasts, I don't know. You might be right. My gut says that radio is going to be around for a little bit longer than you think. And I think younger people will kind of opt in, at least for a season, and kind of casually listen, as most generations have before, you know?
Yeah. Not to end this yet, but leave a comment down below what you think. Do you still listen to the radio?
Yeah.
How do you consume content when you're driving? Just in general. So
Yeah.
let us know. Not to end yet. I just want to bring that up so people can give us some feedback.
Yeah. So I guess if we were to end this and you had a recommendation for someone to listen to a podcast, a podcast which is online audio entertainment, what would you recommend?
Shoot. I mean, I really like Ear Biscuits. I listen to that a lot.
That's
so
good
I would
entertainment.
recommend that. We kind of recommended that last week, though. So I'll say Joe Rogan, maybe.
Yeah.
A lot of people listen to him already, too, but that's a good podcast. So
I would say I don't have a specific podcast to recommend, but I would say that if you really enjoy podcasts, make kind of like a rule where you spread yourself out and get some diversity with your listening. Yes, you should listen to some that is just entertaining, that makes you laugh. That's a little bit of an escape and you can enjoy someone else's comedy. And yes, you should listen to good storytelling for the purpose of entertainment. But then you should also include some podcasts that, talks about stuff you're interested in. So like me and Joshua like filmmaking. And so us getting into podcasts where people talk about films and filmmaking, that's a good idea about your passions. And also listen to podcasts like, what Joshua said, Joe Rogan, who has a huge variety of different people, and you can experience different parts of the world through these people and these conversations that Joe Rogan has with people. And you learn a lot and you grow a lot and you can understand the world more through other people's eyes. I think it's important, especially during a political season, to kind of really see other people's perspective and not be so close-minded about everything. And podcasts is really the best way to do that. I mean, just as a quick example, the whole controversy with Papa John's has been out for a long time. And Ethan and Hila on H3, they just got him on their podcast. And I actually was listening to it. I'm not done with it, but I was listening to it right before we started this one. So, I mean, even that you get to... You get to hear him and really, really see his point of view on the whole controversy, and you come away thinking, well, he might not be, guilty. He might be innocent in this whole scandal.
Yeah, you definitely do see a different side to things, and it's good to have a good perspective. So that's a good recommendation. So to close this video off permanently, do you have any final words?
Nope. Just subscribe, like our video. I mean, if you don't want to subscribe, at least give us a like. Yeah. And leave a comment. Again, we're very interested. We're very audience focused. And we want to grow this company, this entertainment, based on communicating and getting in touch with the audience. So the only way we can do that is knowing that you're watching. And so leave a comment, let us know you're here, ask us questions, and we'll be happy to interact with you guys. So subscribe. Yep. We'd like to grow. We're almost at 100 still. We haven't quite got there. So
yeah.
I guess we'll see you in the next video.
Yep.